Yes, my name is Matthies. I'm the creative director at Machine Games. Wolfenstein 2: The New Colossus is the sequel to Wolfenstein: The New Order, and it's a direct sequel, so it picks up where the first one left off. And this game is about basically liberating America from the Nazi oppression. We had, when we started with the New Order, we always wanted to make like a trilogy. So we built in a lot of stuff in the first game that we could sort of cash in the sequel. So we had a very clear idea where we wanted to take the story and the gameplay. We basically rebuilt the game from ground up with a new engine. So the first game was in Tech 5 and now we're in Tech 6. All of the gameplay system has sort of been reconstructed and iterated upon and so forth. We don't have a knife anymore, we have a hatchet. That leads to some more interesting, shall we say, physical results. It's always challenging to migrate to a new engine because everyone has to relearn the pipelines, but the power of Intech 6 is just, it's like night and day compared to Intech 5, so we're very happy about the upgrade. So we moved the timeline up to the 1960s, which is for us a very interesting time period to explore, and especially in America because there was a lot of things that happened culturally at that time, like civil rights movements and these kinds of things. So it's been very, just creatively, super interesting to explore, like how would the Nazis subvert these things and try to sort of slowly win the hearts and minds of the people.
You were part of a presentation earlier today. You were asked sort of about how to get into the industry of game development, and you brought up that your history was within the demo scene, within the mod scene. The demo scene, I guess, as far as like what that entails now compared to what it was perhaps when you were talking about it then, like it doesn't really exist.
Right.
Because it's not there, do you think that sort of mods are right now a good way for game developers sort of wanting to try and see what they can do in the space? Do you think that that's probably the best way to try and break in?
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, when I started, there wasn't any schools. Like there was no way you could get an education. I think mods are incredibly important because it allows you to work on game development even though you're not a programmer. Otherwise, you kind of have to be a programmer or you have to know someone who can do the code side of things. Whereas a mod, you can, if you're interested in modeling or in music, whatever it is, something that isn't programming, the mods are a way of doing that.
Do you think that there's something to be gained by potentially bringing back something as niche or as specific as a demo scene? Because that, like, you speak to gamers now, I suppose, like a younger audience, they'd have no idea what that even means, right? Like going back beyond something like the PlayStation 1, or more recently from the PlayStation 1, sorry, that hasn't really existed. Do you think that developers should try and be sort of more abstract, more experimental in some of the stuff that they're trying to create?
No, I think that's something that has kind of played out its function. It can still be interesting, I think, especially if it's like a competition or if it's like over a weekend at a convention or something like that. But in terms of the function it used to fill, I mean, you can do something a million times more impressive as a video now and put it on YouTube. So that sort of exploiting the hardware to its maximum is not really relevant in the same way anymore. Because back then, the best demos, it was like the only way you could see that type of content. But that's not really the case anymore because the whole ecology has changed so much.
Machine Games, kind of, a lot of the key staff from the studio came from a studio prior called, I believe it was Starbreeze. And as part of that studio, you guys were known for stuff like The Darkness, for example. What was it like, first of all, starting a new studio and working with a publisher like Bethesda, I suppose? Yeah,
it was a very scary time because we wanted to put ourselves in a position where we could make the best games possible, and that's really why we left Starbase, started Machine Games. But it was quite a long time before any deal was in place. So it basically meant that me and the other founders, we didn't have any income for like a year and a half, which was incredibly scary, especially towards the end when I was like weeks away from having to sell the apartment, and like I had no idea how things were gonna work out. So that was incredibly intense and scary. But interestingly, Bethesda was always at the top of the list of the publishers we wanted to work with. So we were very happy that that deal came together. And yeah, and that's been an amazing ride, like getting to work on these games and with those people. That's really amazing.
This is obviously the second of a trilogy. Are you wanting to sort of really reinvent the wheel in what Wolfenstein 3 might be, or sort of build upon what the first and the second games have brought to market?
I think if it happens, it'll be a little bit of both. We have a very clear idea where we want to go with it, but it's of course it depends on how this one performs financially, because it has to make financial sense to make a third one, but we would love to do that.